finally, at one point, I don't remember, maybe like a year or two into it, I just dropped the whole Mantronics thing and just started doing Man One. You know, because I had to learn how to use a can. I had to learn how to, you know, get my can control down and all that stuff. So, you know, at that time, we would just use these, you know, it was Rust-Oleum or Krylon. And it took a while to learn how to use it. It took a while to learn how to get the caps. It wasn't like it is now where you could just, you know, order online or whatever. So so it took a long time, you know, and then you had to meet people to teach you the ropes, to teach you where to paint. And it wasn't easy to find these people. It wasn't like they were just walking around like, yo, I'm a writer, you know. It was like you had to really like get into the scene and meet someone, and they would introduce you to someone else. And it was a very like underground movement back then. So it took a while to get involved and to get into it. And at first, no one trusted you. Everyone called you a toy. So you had to really like learn the hard way, learn on the streets, you know.
Once you catch that first tag, why do you continue?
Man, I continue because it was just so much fun. It was just like, I love just like carrying around a marker, carrying around a streak, you know, walking around in the middle of the night and catching tags. It was just fun. It was just like something else that I could do. Now, mind you, I'm in high school at this point. You know, I'm like 16 or 17. And I'm getting good grades. I'm the captain of the soccer team. You know, I'm going to go to college when I graduate from high school in a few years. So I have everything going for me, and I decide like I'm going to get into graph. And you know, I always from the get-go, I always realized that graph was something that was going to take me somewhere. Like it wasn't just like I'm going to end up in jail or I'm going to, you know, get caught up in this stuff or whatever. For me, it was like, this is expression. Like I'm gonna learn how to do this the way I want to do it, because this is gonna take my art from these little sketchbooks that I'm showing my friends to like, you know, freeways and the sides of buildings and big ass walls, and millions of people are gonna drive by my stuff. Like that was my goal. It wasn't, you know, fame was good, but it was a different kind of fame. It was like I want to be creative. You know, I don't want to just catch tags my whole life. Even though at first it's fun, you know, later on you realize like, you know, that's not why I'm in this. I'm not in this just to catch tags. I'm in this because I want to do some real art, you know.
Choosing the name Mantronics or Man One so quickly, spur of the moment, did you ever consider changing your name or updating it?
I never considered changing it. Obviously, if there would have been someone already with that name, and I'm sure there might have been someone, you know, that had that name or whatever, but I didn't see him on the streets, and it was such a common name. Even now when I meet people, they're like, hey, what's up, man? And then they kind of giggle. Because it's such a simple, like, basic word. And it was weird because, you know, I have a lot of friends who went through many, many different names in their careers, especially at the beginning. And so I got lucky. I got lucky with that name, and it stuck. And, you know, I was like, I kept looking, man, there's probably another man somewhere and whatever. And I didn't see one, so I just kept riding with it. You know what I'm saying?
You mentioned after you catch your first tag in the bus, you go to school and you find other writers. Yeah. How do you encounter those other writers and find out they have a whole group?
So, you know, I saw one guy drawing on his peachy folder, and he had like this crazy like gangster style that he was doing, and he ended up being a Filipino gangster kind of dude, and he had this like sick hand styles. And so I hit him up and I go, hey, how'd you learn how to write like that? And he's like, oh, my cousin, he's a writer and this and that. And then he introduced me to another friend. It was like, yo, he's messing around with that stuff too. It was just like that. It was just like, you know, from one person to the next. And like I said, I went to a very privileged high school. So it's not like there was like no writers there. You know, there was like no gangsters there. You know what I'm saying? It's like people were going there to go to school. So when you found someone who had that like little bit of gangster in them or a little bit of writer in them, like you were like, oh damn, and then they led you to people, you know. And so it wasn't until later that, the way I really got into like graph, the scene itself, was after my friends there at school like showing me here and there what was going on. I started just walking around the streets on my own just to find graph. I wanted to see pieces, you know, like back then you would see throw ups, you would see tags, but you really wouldn't see pieces on the freeways. Not that much. A little bit later you did, but at first it was hard to find pieces. And I remember the very first time that I walked into the panic zone, and it was crazy. I mean, I walked in there was no one there. I walked into the panic zone because I heard about this spot, took the bus there, and I didn't know I was in the crazy neighborhood or whatever. I was just like, you could see the graph when you go over the bridge, you could see it down by the tracks. So I go down there, and I'll never forget it because I just saw end-to-end color, like dope-ass pieces. I just remember like Jur, Egypt, Frame, Defer, Tempt, Heaven, Dope Style, STN, K2S, just dope pieces, Skept. I mean, just all these dudes. And everything was running fresh. There was nothing was dissed. And I remember like, I thought it was fake. I was like, yo, how did they do this? Like, it's so clean, so colorful. Like everything was like perfectly outlined, in my book. I was a toy. I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. But it just looked so fresh and so clean. And I was like, that's what I want to do.